Hello and welcome back to Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Now, on this week's episode, we are going to be discussing something that isn't just a trend, but a way of life now in the auto industry and amongst car makers. And that is about collaborations, partnerships, and alliances. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
Hi, I'm Ketan Thakkar. Yes, Hormazd, half a century of Indian automotive industry, and we've seen three distinct eras. 80s, during the licensing era, we saw the influx of Japanese. So that was an era of entry through technology and partnerships. Then we saw a rush of joint ventures and partnerships in the 90s and millenniums. And now we're talking about EVs, SDVs, and actually de-risking yourself from the geopolitical situation by having partners around the world. Clearly, Indian automotive industry is defined by numerous successful as well as failed joint ventures and partnerships.
That's right. I think we need to understand why people want partnerships and why partnerships is so critical in the auto industry. One is it's a highly capital intensive business. So there's a lot of costs. So one is sharing the cost, sharing the risk and that self, and then even sharing technology and products, what each party brings to the table. But I think the other reasons, but I think let's take a bit of a historic perspective.
Yes.
I think really the first joint venture was Maruti.
Yes.
With the Indian government. And Suzuki. Yeah, that's right. And at that time, the Indian government was a majority shareholder. Suzuki was just 26% and then went on to 50. And now, as we know, it's not 100%. It's a public company, but of course, it's a majority shareholder. And along the way, I think everyone's tried for certain partnerships. I remember in the 80s, Tata tried desperately with Honda to come in. I think at that time, let's face it, that, after independence, we went into complete isolation, no technology at all. That was just the way our economy functioned, very socialist. And clearly, when things were opening up, Indian companies, they just didn't have the wherewithal. They just didn't have the technology or the resources. So the only way was to partner with a global company. So you had Maruti, let's say Maruti, which was the Indian government going with Suzuki. Tata tried with Honda in 86. Finally, they came with Mercedes in the early 90s.
Right.
That was a joint venture with them. And I think the real rush started when the industry was delicensed in 93.
Right.
So I think we had, who were the first guys in? There was Mahindra and Ford.
Yes.
At that time, Mahindra was also with Chrysler, not so much as a joint venture, but as a collaboration.
Right.
And that's when they had to give up the name Jeep.
Right.
After that, association broke down and they went with Ford.
Right.
Then we had
Honda CL.
Honda CL, that's right. Yeah, with the Shriram Group. Honda came with the Shriram Group. Toyota
Kirloskar
came with Kirloskar, though Toyota was with DCM in the LCV space. So really all joint ventures.
Right.
I think we had Peugeot, which came with PAL.
Yes.
Fiat also came with PAL.
Right.
Got a bit messy because PAL had two wives and, each one wasn't happy. Peugeot and Fiat at that time. And then we had DCM with Deven.
Right.
So absolutely. And I think the first time you had a multinational coming as a 100% subsidiary was Hyundai. 1998. So clearly, I think, Ketan, that's association. Joint ventures were the order of the day back then. And it's very interesting that over a period, slowly it has been the multinational that has gobbled the joint venture. And the Indian partner has exited.
Yes.
I think one of the classic exits which we thought would never happen was Hero Honda.
Yes, phenomenal.
And, you never thought that partnership you thought was rock solid. But that also kind of fell apart. So I think clearly, at the end of the day, it's the company that initially had the technology that was in control of the joint venture.
Absolutely.
Because without product, there's no company.
Absolutely. A lot was determined by the growth of the Indian market, isn't it? We started seeing difference of opinion creeping in various joint ventures. The interests were at odds often when the aspirations of both the joint venture partners may not align, and that's how we saw Hero Honda eventually breaking up in
Correct.
2011.
Yeah, that's right.
Honda had its own vision. Hero Motocar
And Honda felt like, hey, listen, we have the technology. We don't need these guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The two-wheeler space is, it's a storied history of Bajaj Kawasaki, TVS Suzuki, Hero Honda.
And interesting, in TVS Suzuki, TVS really got the better of Suzuki.
Indeed.
Because I think, Suzuki is a difficult customer. And I think the only time Suzuki has really come out not on top in any kind of tussle, either with Volkswagen or with the GM or even with the Indian government where Suzuki won. I think TVS is the only company that got the better of Suzuki.
Wow.
I think they had secretly developed their own product, and then the Victor came, and look where Suzuki is today, and look where TVS is today.
Phenomenal. TVS today is third largest, fastest growing right now.
Exactly.
And Suzuki is trying its bit. It has, just like the small car Focus it had right at the beginning of its entry, it continues to nibble away in the scooter space.
Right.
But clearly the whenever we've seen the ambitions were way too much, or each or either of the partner stepping onto each other's shoes, we saw that the potential joint venture in the making eventually fizzling out. I'd like you to reflect on some of the ventures that Mahindra has had. Ford, Mahindra and Renault.
I think Mahindra Ford actually was a good joint venture, and I think it was quite amicable when they split because clearly for Mahindra it was a choice to invest more in the joint venture, which was to go to Chennai with the Icon. Obviously, they had to put in their amount, or to pull out and put that same limited resource into Scorpio, which is what they did.
Right.
So I think it was an obvious choice over there. And but I think their joint venture with Renault was a little bit more acrimonious.
Yeah.
And, Renault not being a very easy company to deal with at that time, and Mahindra. And I think then Mahindra finally, they bought out the Logan. Everyone thought it would be the other way.
The other way around, yeah. They bought out the architecture as well.
They bought out the architecture, but that was a very high-cost product, never really worked. And as we know, that whole platform is gone.
Eventually, Mahindra also exited the sedan space. And
that's right, which they have. So I think then Mahindra came back with Ford, as we know. But and again, it again had the promise of being a really good joint venture. And in this case, I think Mahindra pulled the rug out from Ford's feet at the last moment. Whether it was the right thing to do from a, let's say, maybe from a business point, it was the right thing to do. But,
COVID had a major impact there.
COVID had a major impact, but I think also change of leadership. And, frankly, if you look at it, it was the right decision for them. But I just think the way it was done, really it left a bad taste because it really took Ford till the edge, and Ford had no option but to wind up because they didn't have any products that could meet BS6 finally. But I think again, going through that thing, there were issues which both the sides couldn't reconcile. And, we've said this earlier in our earlier podcasts, so I think there was a cap on investment, which Ford was going to do. So beyond that, they wouldn't have been committed. So there are a lot of small issues over there, or big issues over there. And I think, so clearly, I think then it's interesting that we reached an era earlier of joint ventures where the Indian companies really needed, let's say,
foreign partner to bring in technology.
Foreign product, technology. But, I think Indian companies, the tech transfer has been pretty rapid. And if you look at the Indian OEMs today, they pretty much stand on their own feet, especially in the Indian market. They're very competitive. Okay, I would say globally, still not as competitive as they could be. But Tata Mahindra have never had it better.
Yeah.
And without a joint venture partner and completely alone.
Clearly, definitely, usually the alliances and partnerships happen when either of the partners trying to bridge a gap. For a lot of these global multinational corporations, it was access to the Indian market. And for a lot of local players, it was always about getting access to technology.
That was a win-win they were looking at.
And what's phenomenal to me, Hormazd, when we look at the history of various countries, Japan, Europe, US, the evolution of Indian automotive industry has happened just in the last half a century. And, sometimes they compete with global guys who have experience of selling vehicles around the world for over a century.
I would even say Indian auto industry, frankly, it was just Maruti till 1993.
Absolutely.
because it was still controlled. The industry wasn't delicensed. So
absolutely.
Actually, just a little over 30 years.
Absolutely. And what is phenomenal is that in that time span, since 93 up until now, India has grown so significantly in size, and it has become a market that no one could actually ignore. Third largest car market in the world, the largest two-wheeler market in the world, if you were to exclude the EVs from China. Third, fourth largest commercial vehicle market in the world. And clearly everyone knows that given the industry volume declining world over, that there is no way to go but to come to India. And now we are seeing the tables turn. Now everyone wants to partner the Indian companies, isn't it, Hormazd?
That is, I think, an amazing situation because clearly, you've got a lot of, let's say, multinationals wanting to come in here, but they don't want to come alone. They want to partner with a suitable local player. Earlier they all came solo.
Yeah.
Or they started off with a joint venture and then went solo. It's like GM.
Yeah.
They were with Hindustan Motors. We forgot to talk about that.
Yes.
Even Mitsubishi was with HF. That was just a license agreement, no joint venture. But then GM
went on its own
100%. Ford went on its own 100%. And, I think...
Even Honda. Eventually.
Yeah, even Honda. Absolutely. Even Honda. Even Toyota, though Kirloskar still have a stake in that, though Kirloskar bought some of their stake back.
Yeah.
So, clearly, but in any case, Toyota is in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
So all these companies are really, let's say almost wholly owned subsidiaries of the parent company over here.
Indeed.
Yeah, that's right. And I think even Volkswagen, they came much later. Volkswagen, Skoda. So right from the get-go, they came in 100%. But I think slowly they found that the market is not so easy to crack. It's not a market you can make money in. It's a risky market. And I think clearly if you look at some of the multinationals, they have either, let's say, dialed back. They've been looking for partnerships with Indian companies. And some of them have worked, some of them haven't worked. So I think the first outreach probably, would be Fiat reaching out to Tata Motors.
Yes.
I think that was in about 2006, 2008, something like that.
2006, 2007. Right?
Yeah, that's right. So, and I think they reached out, and of course, it was Ratan Tata's equation at that time with Sergio Marchionne, which really kind of forged it at the top. And if you look at it, I think the only JV that still stands it's for manufacturing, not for cars.
Fiat India Automotive Private Limited.
It's a joint venture between Tata and Fiat, now Stellantis.
Yes.
So, and I think there's a reason why they can't break that joint venture, because the exit clauses are so punitive for each company.
Correct.
It would be too expensive to kind of file for divorce in that.
Correct.
But it's working, it's carrying on as it is. And I'll come back to a kind of association that, can be done. So I think right now we're in this stage of electrification, transition to EVs, hybrids, which is so capital intensive, so disruptive. I think everyone is looking for relooking at some sort of partnership.
Absolutely. And the structure, Hormazd, has changed. No? Earlier, you had to have some kind of a skin in the game. You would get into equity partnership, and then the separation would be sour, and there would be some kind of acrimony. But we've nicely seen, at least in the last decade and a half, that companies are okay to share architectures, share technology, and work together. Contract manufacturing is another way that companies try to work towards, an amicable future wherein both the companies stand together.
That's right. I mean, look, I think there are still talks. If we see who's done it successfully, I don't think you can count Renault, Nissan, and Volkswagen, Skoda, because there's a joint ownership of these companies. So it's very different. And as we've seen now, Renault and Nissan have kind of separated. Volkswagen, Skoda, very much part of the same group. So really, you can't count that. I think the most successful right now is Toyota and Maruti Suzuki.
Yeah.
I think that's really worked well. Maybe worked better for Toyota, I think. But one has to see how long that will last. The sense I'm getting is a lot of people felt that, after the passing of Osamu Suzuki would kind of, slowly fold into Toyota. But I think, Toshihiro Suzuki, I think he's got his own mind. I think he wants to prove that, he can build, or even, let's say, build on his father's legacy. And it doesn't look like he's going to be, let's say, another
folded into Toyota.
Another brand of Toyota. Exactly. And I think if you see going forward, there's a lot that Suzuki still wants to do on its own. And the kind of association is very, very limited with the Toyota, especially on the two EVs which they're doing right now, which is the e-Vitara and an MPV after that.
Right.
So that was a global kind of association. And I think that, again, talking about collaborations, alliances, it was Toyota which stitched that whole, let's say, EV thing. I don't think it's been very successful. I think the Japanese, all of them, there's not one who is really a leader in EV technology.
True.
So, if they'd done it with a Chinese partner, it would have been different. So I think that's, from a product standpoint, not really worked brilliantly.
Yeah.
And I think the e-Vitara also, frankly, Surges has driven it, not very impressed with the car. So I think clearly, it might have worked as a partnership, but on the product front, I think, it's not really been a win-win in that sense.
All along, Japanese brigade has been little half-hearted when it comes to the EV transition, and they've been very vocal about the multi-pathway. There's definitely rationale behind how they are approaching towards the cleaner powertrains of the future, but they know, at least from the optical standpoint, that you got to have an EV because that's the direction that the Indian government has given to the Indian automotive industry, and clearly they've moved in that direction. And it always makes sense to do it with someone rather than do it on your own, given the diversity of powertrain that Indian consumer may potentially choose from. So from that standpoint, I think it has been a good win-win, and there's really no equity involved here in India. There is some small equity involved in Japan, but clearly they've been leveraging each other's architecture. I mean, it's amazing to see that 60% of Toyota volumes today comes from Suzuki badged cars.
Right.
When the rebadging initiative had begun, at that point in time, none of the rebadged products had worked, and we had questioned that strategy, whether it will work or not. But clearly, it's given them the access to the market, which Toyota otherwise would not have got.
Yeah.
And now the EV powertrain.
Yeah. So really, I think that is probably one of the most successful kind of partnerships or alliances. There haven't been too many others. I think if you look at it, in fact, there have been none. I think people are talking, and I think after that earlier lot of joint ventures and, the fallouts, even Mercedes had a fallout with Tata Motors, or Tata Motors had a fallout with Mercedes.
Yes.
Mercedes went on its own. I think Indian companies themselves have been a little kind of reticent or cautious, especially Tata Motors. Tata Motors, fiercely independent, always has been. But I think it's always been on the brink of some partnership.
Absolutely.
I remember Ratan Tata had said, he was worried about the IndyCar. He had spoken to GM for a possible investment in the PV division, maybe even a buyout. But then, of course, the IndyCar took off with the V2 and that never came back. And I think through its history of the last 25 years,
quoted many companies.
They have how many companies Tata Motors has spoken to? I mean, even with Peugeot.
Yes.
They were looking at doing, let's say, a joint project over there. That never worked out. I think we know that with Volkswagen,
Skoda Volkswagen,
there was a big plan to do that.
Last moment it was dropped out.
Last moment it was dropped out again. And, let's say their Volkswagen 2.0 could have been Tata badge. I mean, we're just looking at what could have been. Again, that fallout. Again, that was interesting why that fell out also. Because I think, while people might want it at the top, and a lot of people do, it has to have the buy-in of everyone below.
Absolutely. The alignment of culture, no?
The alignment of culture, the alignment of goal. And I think deep down, whatever you say, Volkswagen just didn't like the idea of sharing the same space with Tata Motors. And they found a lot of reasons to suggest to the management. And that time, the boss was Meyer.
Yes.
So Bernard Meyer, who really wasn't an engineer, one of the few guys who wasn't an engineer. So you had to take what his engineer said. And what I'm told is his engineers painted a picture that, listen, it's working out. We're not going to save any costs really by joining hands with, so might as well do it on our own.
Right.
And that's what happened. And honestly, even from Tata Motors' point of view, to be honest, that association was also kind of stuck in the time of Cyrus Mistry, and then he went, and then obviously it had the kind of association that had for the next chairman to take it forward with Chandra. It was very, very difficult. Right. So I think clearly there were reasons for it. Then again, with Tata Motors sticking with them, they looked at let's say both Chery and Geely. And we've said this in our podcast, and it was just for that one platform.
Blackbird.
And we'll come back to the platform, which is still elusive for Tata Motors going forward. I think even Mahindra, let's say out of all, I think Mahindra, they had an experience with 2 joint ventures with both Ford and Renault and even Cherokee. But then I think after Anish Shah and Rajesh came in, they were very clear, we don't need anyone, we can do it on our own.
Right.
So I think there was a talk again with Volkswagen to kind of look at their ID4 platform.
Right.
But I think finally they said, listen, even this we can do alone. And if you look, their strategy has worked. I think they've kind of toyed with the idea of some association with Volkswagen for sales. They had a joint, but it's all fizzled out really.
Yes.
Because
Motors.
Yeah, motors. Exactly. The motors, the APP 550 motor, which was to come, but it was just too expensive. So again, a lot of work has been going on in the last 10 years in kind of looking at association, but nothing really has happened yet.
Right. And I mean, I can see that, like I said before, that the conversation is now shifting from having equity stake to technical alliance. It's more safer option, isn't it, Hormazd?
It is a safer option, clearly, I think, because equity stake just complicates everything, and it's just much cleaner to do, get the technology transfer. So, but I think in some cases, they want an equity stake. Like, let's say, Skoda Volkswagen.
Right.
Right now, it's very clear that they are looking for a partner.
Yeah.
They have the technology, but they're looking for a partner with the cash.
Right.
Because I think what's happened with them is that, I think, let's say, up there in Wolfsburg, they become a bit skeptical. And for their new platforms, which is the CMP21, which you've written about, I think it would be an investment of about $1 billion again for an ICE and EV portfolio, 2 body styles, the industrialization of all that, around $1 billion, maybe more. And I think what they've said is, we are not going to be paying all this. You find a partner to pitch in, an equity partner. So I think we've heard that Zelmer's come to India many times, the CEO of Skoda, running around trying to get partners. I think originally they spoke to Mahindra. That didn't work out. They had rejected the JSW initially, but now they've gone back to JSW because JSW have the money.
Correct.
And as you know, talks are on with JSW for an equity partnership in the company here, which is Skoda Volkswagen. Yeah, exactly. So from JSW's point of view, I think it also works well because they don't know anything about cars, right?
And they got access to architecture beyond China.
Yeah, beyond China. And I think Ketan, it's right to say that if you were to partner today, a Chinese company would make the most sense looking at the way the future is going.
Absolutely, Hormazd.
I think everyone, has tried to have their kind of flirt around with the BYDs, the Geelys, or Chery.
Yes.
All that is going on. But I just think the geopolitical issue makes it very difficult.
Absolutely. And China has reached a completely different orbit when it comes to electrification. And, there's side of the world which says that potentially there could be a future towards hydrogen fuel cell. But there is other part of the world who have resigned to this reality that eventually the future is going to be electric. And they are miles ahead. I think often in the past we used to equate and compare India, and we used to dream about it. Somewhere we'll be like China, but now it just appears that they're a completely different planet. The way they mastered the cell technology, the way they've mastered the cost structure, the scale that they've reached,
the whole value chain,
entire value chain. Entire value chain. Today, you want to sell an EV, you got to have stake in the Chinese ecosystem, some kind of a technical partnership, some kind of an equity partnership. And clearly now, from an Indian company standpoint, they are definitely keen to have some kind of an association going on with some part of ecosystem in China.
Yeah, that's right. So I think, again, coming back to that, and I think what we've heard, let's say JSW right now, I think they've been trying to do, and it's been reported, they've been talking to Chery. To kind of get their products here and, get the platform and develop their own top hat.
Yes.
But I think the challenge is there are now, what is happening is that there are restrictions on technology transfer. So there are export restrictions on technology transfer. So I think while JSW might want to do this with Chery, and Chery also might want to kind of sell the platforms and architecture to JSW, they will be restricted. So what does that mean? I think without the data, without, let's say the tech, without the IP, for JSW to make their own top hat very, very difficult. So at most, they might end up just having
CBUs?
not CBUs, but let's say even CKD, but you can't do any change. It might just be Chery's badged with JSW, with a JSW badge on it.
Yeah.
Which kind of defeats the whole purpose, because I think JSW have their own ambitions to become an automaker, and the starting point was get a platform, build on that before you go to your own platform. So that, I think, is going to be a problem. And again, coming back to the MG side of it, again, I think, MG are looking, again, partnering with Volkswagen, and they've got the SAIC connection. And that, again, is progressing, because I think MG needs good petrol engines, which they don't have right now. They only have good
This is a completely different facet. I mean, it's a scoop for us, isn't it?
It is a scoop. Yeah, it is a scoop. Absolutely.
We are talking about an alliance brewing between JSW, MG, and Skoda VW.
Yes.
Instead of JSW Motor and Skoda VW.
That's right. MG is very much part of it. So MG meaning SAIC.
Right.
Very much part of it. And don't forget, SAIC and Volkswagen have a long-standing relationship. So I think this could be one aspect of that. They're still pursuing the Chery angle, which is what I hear about JSW. But again, I mean, it's very fascinating. You have so many of these potential conversations going on. And to me, the biggest shocker is, which we did in our podcast last week, is even Honda.
Yes.
A company that traditionally has shunned alliances, has been very isolated in the way it's worked. Part of their business plan is to offer their tech and platforms to other OEMs. And so that, again, is really, it just shows how the landscape has completely changed. And, to really cut costs, you need more scale, you need to de-risk, you need to share. And that's really the order of the day. So I think, it's a fascinating time where there are a lot of these alliances happening. Nothing has really happened, because there's so much that can, fall between the cracks. There are cultural differences, there's technology transfer. Everyone wants to control that. There are a lot of issues which kind of would make it very difficult to finally crack some sort of a deal.
So even the structure of the market probably is governing those thought processes, isn't it? Now we've got top 6 players accounting for over 90% of the market. Now, for the rest of the market, they are on the fringes. Now, if you have to compete with the big boys in the market, and we've seen all of them now literally moving towards a million kind of road. I mean, at suboptimal volumes, how do you justify investments into future architecture? That too, multiple powertrain.
Exactly.
Gets very difficult, isn't it?
Exactly. And I think that's where, I think also what is looming is Cafe 3.
Yes.
That's going to be existential for a lot of people.
Yes.
I mean, Volkswagen has to get that electric platform, in the market. Now, they can't get that electric platform without financial resource or support. So that's why they're talking to partners. I mean, from what we understand, Volkswagen Group has said, we're not giving you all the cash. You find someone. I think, in a way it's right, because the genesis of that and why they've been a little ticked off is, I think, because of the huge volumes, were projected. 9,000 Kylax. Now, how can you sell 9,000 Kylax? It's the predecessors, poor Ashish Gupta has to bear the brunt, but it was his predecessors, who kind of gave this volume projection. Totally unrealistic.
Yeah.
Anyone would know with just that one engine, it's going to be very difficult to do that in a highly, highly competitive space. It's the most competitive segment.
Right.
And you know what the market leaders are doing over there. So it's very, very difficult to kind of match that. So, it's kind of a kind of skepticism has crept into the headquarters. So they want, to share, let's say, this project, CMP21, which is the whole, we've done a story on it. It's a combination of an EV, a hybrid, and an ICE platform.
Right.
I think it could be good. Long, about 4.5 meter SUVs. And from MG standpoint, also, it could be a good fit. Because don't forget, right now, MG is vulnerable because they're fundamentally an EV company.
Right.
I mean, Windsor just did 50,000 EVs in a record time, which is phenomenal.
Right.
So they're known for their EVs. Hector is on the way down. I think the next car, they will get all hybrids and plug-in hybrids. They are nowhere when it comes to pure ICE. And ICE is still very much a strong part of this market. So they need a strong ICE player, which is what Skoda Volkswagen is.
Yeah.
So there is a good fit over there.
Yeah.
Parallelly, they're looking at Chery, which again I think has stumbled a bit purely because it's very difficult, I think,
Geopolitical
yeah,
situation.
that's right. I mean, just get the tech transfer is becoming difficult for a lot of, let's say, companies sourcing from China.
It's a figment of imagination, Hormazd. Skoda, Volkswagen, MG, all of a sudden it makes sense with the kind of combined volumes that they may do. And who knows? I mean, JSW group is part of that joint venture. Maybe JSW Motor also potentially capitalizes on the architecture or engines. It's a figment of imagination. Possibilities are there, but it can really get complex. But clearly, it's a given in today's time when new products are like box offices. If they don't do well in the first month, then they do not have legs. And then what do you do with the sunk investment that you've already made?
That's right.
And there's got to be a comeback plan. And I like that analogy of yours wherein you say you got to pay that entry price in India.
Yeah, that's
if
right.
you don't do that, half-hearted approach, you'll only end up looking at partnering somehow or taking someone else's support.
That's
so,
right.
so clearly you need alliances, and it's the order of the day. Like you said, it is a way of life in India, and it is going to get more and more granular in nature, probably for chemistry, cells, for motors, and even in the entire value chain, is it?
Yeah, that's right. But what's really interesting, Ketan, is we've talked of all these partnerships. None of them have happened yet.
Yes.
Except for, as we said, Toyota, Suzuki, and the Fiat Tata one, which is, or the Stellantis Tata one, which is ongoing. It's more an engine and manufacturing joint venture.
Yeah.
But I think, whenever talk about the companies, let's say that really don't need it. I think Toyota, Suzuki sorted. I think that's working well.
Honda is doing well.
Honda is doing well. Hyundai, Kia, both can stand on their own. They really don't need a partnership. Mahindra, I think pretty much, it's a very unique company with unique products. Are doing well, not desperate for any partnership. Maybe on the battery side, but again, it's just supplier contracts and arrangements, so that which everyone does. They've amazingly developed all the tech in-house, and now they've even launched this or announced this new platform, which, typically a lot of the others are looking for people to share a development of a new platform. I think that leads me to Tata Motors, actually, whether they could be open to collaboration for a next generation of product. Ketan, I think after Sierra, from what I understand, there's going to be a bit of a drought, isn't there? Product drought. There's nothing absolutely all new.
We've spoken about it in our previous podcast about array of models that are in the pipeline. But again, every once in a while, we see Tata Motors getting stuck on proving the business case. I'm
very confident of Sierra. I think that really is one product which I think could really they could knock it out of the park with that finally.
I'm just hoping that that gives them that confidence to invest in the future products, and if not, potentially Stellantis, something that we've discussed. I mean,
I think it's a perfect fit because Stellantis needs another platform, a mid-size SUV platform. It needs a platform below the Compass. Compass is too expensive, too outdated. It just cannot compete. It's not competitive anymore in this marketplace.
True.
It needs a platform below the Compass. Tata Motors needs a mid-size platform, something again below the D8. D8 platform for the Harrier and Safari. Again, did the job, but don't forget it was a Land Rover platform, not a grounds-up platform.
It was adapted for India.
It was adapted for India. So I think both of them need a slightly larger, or let's say, one grounds-up platform which can, serve a multitude of body styles with a multitude of architectures with a cutting-edge ENE, which is Ethernet-based. That's what you need right now. That's what the latest platforms have to be. From what I understand, I think Tata Motors, talking to vendors, as you know, we've heard of Scarlets and all these kind of codes over there.
Scarlett, Taurus, Geo.
But none of them have been greenlit as yet.
Yes.
So this makes a case for, let's say, coming quick to market with, let's say, either joint development or even Honda could be a perfect let's say, a customer.
NLI.
Yeah, for them, if Honda is developing a platform, it could be something that even Tata Motors could look at.
No, I completely agree. And with Fiat, I mean, with Stellantis, they have a history. In fact, we broke the story about how they are going to get their engines. So
That's right. Exactly.
They know each other very well.
That's right. So I think on the engine front, we've seen a lot of alliances happen.
They share facilities.
So it's just logical that they can develop a platform together, and it's logical that the 1.5, the turbo petrol, which has done its debut on the Sierra, and is coming in the Harrier.
Yeah,
that's a new petrol engine. It's a perfect fit for a Stellantis, for Jeep. Because clearly the Jeep petrol engines are just too expensive to bring here.
And this is this eerie similarity already of Punch and C3. Very similar looking, basalt and curve.
Yeah.
I mean, why not have products in future, share architecture, probable design? Why not? And just makes sense.
Yeah, I think, and John Elkann, as you know, the chairman, has a phenomenal equation with the Tata Group. I mean, I met him on the 28th of December last year. He'd come down for a lovely service for Ratan Tata's birthday, his first birthday after he had passed on. And he was there himself. So, that shows you how important or the kind of closeness or the relationship there is between, the Anjali family, which is now Elkann, and the Tata Group. So, it's just a logical possibility. There's really no overlap, or there is a very bit of overlap, but I think, the synergies are definitely there. But again, I think Stellantis has sunk so deep. Whether they can pull themselves out of that hole,
it's going to be
very difficult. And it's really sad because a car that I've really fallen in love with, and I will say that, is the C3.
Yeah.
Because that engine and that gearbox and the ride and handling for the price is just phenomenal. It's just that there's no brand recall.
It's a rocket.
So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. So I think a lot of scope for so many partnerships, but very, very difficult to happen.
Absolutely. And I mean, the prospect of Honda and Tata, potentially Nissan sourcing from Honda, Stellantis, Tata Motors.
Yeah, I think that's another one. I think Nissan Honda could be a great opportunity as well. I mean, Nissan could be an ideal customer again because they've got the Tecton and they don't have a sub 4. So I would assume Honda is developing one, and if they're open to kind of sharing platforms, that could be a good fit again. Not the merger which Honda and Nissan. I think it just wasn't going to work. But I think these specific kind of alliances definitely can.
And again, this the evolution that we've seen globally, Hormazd, of how everyone's going slow on EV. Now again, ICE is back on table. We've said that. I mean, you've said it many times that India potentially could be the last man standing when it comes to ICE, when it comes to a large manufacturing base. That also opens up a possibility of India becoming that sourcing hub for many multinational corporations to solve the global market.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at it, look at the conversations going on. Stellantis talking to an Indian OEM for an ICE engine, talking to Tata Motors. Again, MG or SAIC, JSW, interest in Volkswagen because they've got good
localized
good petrol engine.
Right.
So, it's obviously the ICE engine is playing a key kind of factor in these discussions.
Absolutely, Hormazd. So, I feel that more and more we're going to see people having conversation. But at the end of the day, it's the alignment of culture, the win-win possibilities.
It is. And, somewhere down the line, there are also egos. I mean, for me, which I think the classic collaboration could have been, now of course it can't be, was when both Tata Motors and Mahindra developed a 2.2 liter diesel, similar in spec, and who was doing the development for both? AVL. So they were laughing all the way to the bank. This could have been a shared engine, but of course that wasn't going to happen. Each one doesn't want to, wants to totally control their powertrain destiny.
Yeah.
And in this case, Mahindra is just shot ahead, as far as their engines go. But yeah, clearly, I was just thinking of that. Both 2.2 liter diesels at that time, and both very similar in spec, even in output. And AVL did the development.
Yeah.
So I think, that, and and the volumes are not even that great if you look at it. So pulling it together would have given a lot more scale.
And that also throws up this aspect of how powertrain is going to be at the heart of future conversation, isn't it? With the cafe conversation, with the EV conversation, powertrain is going to play a very critical role, either to meet the regulation or to have access to a certain segment of the market. Again, goes to show that we're going to see many more conversations going on ahead in the future. And it's a hard job to sustain it on your own in a highly intensely competitive market like India.
Yeah, absolutely. In this podcast, we basically talked about conversations and the tantalizing possibilities of these alliances, but nothing has really firmly materialized yet. But I think we are on the verge of that. It would be interesting to see how the let's say the Skoda, Volkswagen, JSW, MG, SAIC, the whole kind of association goes. That would be quite interesting to know. And then, going forward to see, Honda's plans as well. But I think clearly it's just a matter of time. It is inevitable because I think the only way to kind of increase scale, which is critical to finally lower costs, also to de-risk and even pool certain learnings. It's quite critical. We've seen this happening abroad. I think even Ford taking Volkswagen's platform for EVs. So there's enough of that. It's their global, the different mindset. People over there just look at, what impact it will have on the business. Over here, we're not that evolved as yet, but I think the time has come when we will be seeing many more collaborations, and with that, some interesting products coming out. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up this session of Deep Drive. Hope you enjoyed it. Please do tune in every Saturday at 11 a.m. And to make sure you don't forget, click on the bell icon to be notified. And you can also catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks for watching. See you again next week.